All right, we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Wanda Willis, Executive Director of the Tennessee Council on Developmental Disabilities. We're a state agency dedicated to connecting the disability community with the disability service system in Tennessee, making sure that we're all working together. Today, we're here to talk about one of the most important issues of our community. Final decision about the vaccine for you. After today's event, be sure and visit the Department of Health's website regularly for the most up-to-date and accurate information about the vaccine. Now I have the privilege of introducing two of the state's I want to introduce Dr. Bruce Davis, who's the Deputy Commissioner of Clinical Services at the Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. We are so fortunate in Tennessee to have DIDD as a cabinet level agency at the table for all of these important discussions. Dr. Davis, I'm going to turn it over to you for you to tell us about DIDD's role in the vaccine distribution planning.
Thank you, Wanda. I'm going to do a quick sound check, make sure I can be heard. Apparently I can, because I see Jeannie is signing what I'm saying, so I think I'm in good shape. I appreciate you having me today, Wanda, and just appreciate so much the partnership with the Council on Developmental Disabilities and getting information out to people about the vaccines. They're so important. It's such a critical thing that we're doing here to help people get the vaccine early, because we have had a number of people who have suffered severe consequences from the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we are really committed to trying to make sure we get this information out so that people can make a very good informed decision about whether or not they want to take the vaccine. I also want to give a shout out to my co-presenter today, who is Dr. Michelle Fiscus with the Tennessee Department of Health. And Dr. Fiscus has been really instrumental in getting everyone organized around getting these vaccines out and getting information out about them. So I really appreciate the tremendous partnership that DIDD has had with the Tennessee Department of Health. And they have just been wonderful to work with in this process. What DIDD is doing is basically trying to coordinate the process of getting the vaccines and identifying who wants the vaccine, who doesn't want the vaccine, and basically getting that information then back out to local health departments and to our agencies so that they can arrange for people to get those vaccines. I can share a few more details about that when my question and answer portion comes up, but that in a nutshell is what we're trying to do. And so with that, I'm just so happy to be here. I will say one thing for you right quick about this though. I calculated some data today because this vaccine is so important for our population. And I kind of feel like with this, with us stepping forward right now to start getting these vaccines out there, I almost feel like the soldiers must have felt whenever we went in for D-Day. We still had a long way to go after D-Day. We had to go across Europe. We had to win the war in the Pacific during World War II, but we sort of saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's the way I feel about the vaccine right now, because as we're able to start getting people vaccinated, we're starting to see the beginning of the end of this pandemic that we've been experiencing. I calculated here, just looking back in DIDD, and So I calculated these rates per 100,000. That's generally how we've been comparing a lot of things across the state. And I want to mention that people with IDD have been 3.45 times more likely to die from COVID-19 than has the typical population. So we're experiencing a death rate much higher than what the typical population is. And that's why we have been able to get people with intellectual and developmental disabilities into phase 1A1 of this vaccine distribution, because it's so important that our population get that. And if you look at this, what I really wanted people to understand here is that now I calculated this in rates per 100,000. We don't have 100,000 people that we're calculating this on. So it's about 12,500 people. We've had 36 deaths among that group. If we had had the Moderna vaccine, we would have had 2. So at a 94.5% effectiveness rate, we would have had 34 people that would still be alive now had we had the Moderna vaccine to help us through this. So I just wanted to make that one point as we go further into this. I want to make sure Dr. Fiscus has plenty of time to talk about some of the information that she has as well. But I felt like that was a really important point to make as we enter this discussion, Wanda. So thank you so much for having me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions when we get around to that part of it.
We might have lost Wanda. So Dr. Fiscus, it's our honor to have you here today, and I'm going to turn it over to you. Oh, you might be muted.
Yeah, it wasn't letting me unmute. Okay, great. Thank you. So good morning, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Davis, for inviting me to speak to you all this morning. Today is a very exciting day in Tennessee because today the vaccine arrives at 28 different locations across the state, and we start vaccinating our frontline healthcare workers. And so this is a remarkable historic day, and I completely agree with the analogy about D-Day. This is the beginning of the end today, and so everything else that we're doing is now time limited. So there will be an end to mask wearing. It's not yet, but it's coming. There will be an end to not being able to gather, and an end to not being able to see my parents who are in their 80s. And so we're going to get there, and I'm just so happy that we have vaccine, and that it is this remarkably effective vaccine that really nobody expected. So I'm Dr. Michelle Fiscus. I'm the medical director of the Department of Health's immunization, vaccine preventable diseases and immunization program. As I've worked a lot with TEMA, I have learned the term blue skies. My blue skies job when we're not fighting a pandemic is to manage the Vaccines for Children's program, which is an entitlement program that provides vaccines to children who are uninsured or underinsured. To manage the Tennessee Immunization Information System, which is the vaccine registry that captures immunizations that are administered in Tennessee so that people have a lifelong record of their immunization history, and to work the Vaccine Preventable Diseases program so that when we have outbreaks of vaccine preventable diseases in the state, we respond to those and get vaccines into people and quarantine and isolate. All the things that we're doing right now are things that we do on a regular basis when we have small outbreaks of vaccine preventable diseases. It's just that this is obviously on a massive scale. So it's wonderful to be with you all, and thank you for joining in to hear this really important information. Next, please. So the first thing I want you to do is to know where to find information about the COVID-19 vaccine and our plan. So our plan had to be submitted to the CDC on October the 16th. It is in draft. That watermark of draft will never go away. It is a living, breathing document that will be updated as we have updates. But you can find it by going to our website. If you go to tn.gov/health and then click on the yellow bar at the top of the page, and then scroll down to that little blue square with a shield on it that says COVID-19 vaccine information. If you click there, you can find a link to read the most current draft of the plan. It was last updated on December the 2nd. We expect to be updating it again next week, most likely. You can also find running frequently asked questions links there, links to CDC resources, one-pagers that you can give out to people who are questioning the need for the vaccine or who are asking about safety. All of that information can be found there. Next, please. Our plan was informed by the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine's framework for the equitable allocation of COVID-19 vaccine, and equity is a huge focus of our plan. We've actually been lauded federally now as probably the most equitable plan in the country, which is a wonderful thing. There are other universities across the country that are looking at how to elevate what we've done in our plan to make it a standard of how things should be done around the administration of a limited resource. So we're very proud of that work. That plan was also informed by the 30 stakeholders that you see here, and DIDD is among them, and Dr. Davis joins us every other week to talk through issues, especially around equity when it comes to getting vaccine out to people who are in underrepresented communities or who are vulnerable, especially vulnerable to significant morbidity or death because of COVID-19. So we're very grateful to these partners that have helped us not only make sure that the plan is on the right track, but are also assisting us in communicating with you and their constituents and members this really important information. Next, please. So the first thing that I want to make sure that you understand is, we hear a lot of comparisons between COVID-19 and flu, and that COVID-19 is not as deadly as the flu. There have been 5 pandemics that have reached North America and had significant impact over the last century, and we're currently living in one. There was the swine flu H1N1 pandemic in 2009. In that pandemic, we had 12,000 Americans that died. That seemed like a huge pandemic. That is the only one that I was aware of as an adult. 12,000 Americans died. We've crossed 300,000 Americans with this pandemic. In 1968, there was an avian flu pandemic that killed 100,000 Americans. In 1957, another avian flu pandemic that killed about the same number. And then the 1918 flu, that H1N1 flu that killed 670,000 people in the United States. If you'll click once more for me. As of yesterday, this pandemic in 11 months has killed 1.6 million people worldwide and 299,000, well, we've now crossed 300,000 Americans in 9 months. And if you'll click again for me, I think the other checks will come up. So we have passed the global and U.S. deaths for every pandemic that has hit North America in 100 years, save the H1N1 pandemic of 1918, and we are halfway to the U.S. deaths from 1918, and that was with 1918 healthcare. We have 2020 healthcare, and we have lost over 300,000 Americans. So this is far and away the deadliest infectious disease event that has happened in North America and the world in over a century. And I can't emphasize that more, that you are living through the deadliest infectious disease event that has hit the planet in over a century. And we absolutely cannot overstate the seriousness of what we're in right now. Next, please. So, and once more. So this is a graphic that CDC has put out of what to expect with vaccines that are coming. So we are right here, launch day today, when we first start to see limited doses of vaccine come out. This is the Pfizer vaccine, as you know, and these limited doses are going to hospitals that can deal with the Pfizer vaccine, which has a lot of really difficult storage conditions that have to be kept to. But then there should be a pretty quick ramp up, probably in January, of availability of doses so that we can start getting larger numbers of people vaccinated. Then eventually, as we get everyone vaccinated, it will make its way into routine vaccination strategies like we have with measles, mumps, and rubella and flu vaccines and others. But right now, the supply is pretty constrained. And today, we're deploying 56,550 vaccines across a population of 6.8 million individuals in Tennessee. So that is a drop in the bucket for what we need. As of right now, if we don't get more vaccines than the two that were expected, the Pfizer and the Moderna, which should hopefully receive FDA EUA approval today, we're probably going to be about halfway into 2022 before we get everyone immunized. Hopefully, we're going to see some other vaccines come on board. Hopefully, there'll be some additional ramping up of these doses. We hope to be able to have at least 50% of the population vaccinated by summer of 2021. So it's still going to be a slow process. You're still going to have to wear a mask and socially distance and be really careful not to get infected. Next, please. So safety is a paramount concern. I know it's something that is on the minds of all of you. Will these vaccines be safe? And there's a lot of talk about the process being sped up. And you know, frankly, the phrase Operation Warp Speed did not do science any favors because it implies that this has been a rushed process. And so I want to be very clear that this has not been a rushed process. And in fact, these vaccines have gone through the exact same clinical trials and investigation as every other vaccine that has ever been approved for use in the United States. So that begins with phase 1 clinical trials where we have a very small number of volunteers who are willing to be given a vaccine to look at what kind of side effects it causes. Is it able to prevent the disease that we're trying to prevent, and what kind of dosing needs to be done? 1 dose, 2 dose, how big of a dose? Once things look good going through that phase, we go into phase 2 clinical trials where now there are hundreds of volunteers, again, answering the same kinds of questions around safety and dosing. And then once we successfully get through phase 2, then there's phase 3 clinical trials, which involve hundreds or thousands, or in the case of these vaccines, tens of thousands of volunteers. And again, looking to make sure that the diseases or the vaccine is preventing the disease we're trying to prevent, and that it's not causing any significant side effects. Once a vaccine goes through all of those clinical trials, then it goes to FDA licensure, and then the manufacturing process begins. And this is a very, very expensive process. So pharmaceutical companies sometimes have to build new factories, they have to invest in equipment, and they have to be able to produce millions and billions of doses of vaccine before they can really deploy that out. And it's that part, that manufacturing part, that can take years to be successful. Next, please. So what Operation Warp Speed did was it took this bottom part of the manufacturing, and if you'll click again, and what it did was it put it up into a swim lane. So instead of this happening consecutively, where you do all the clinical work first and then you start manufacturing, Operation Warp Speed injected billions of dollars into the system so that these pharmaceutical companies could begin manufacturing while the clinical trials were going on, so that we could be stockpiling this vaccine, and as soon as it's approved by FDA, we can have it out. And so that's what's happened with Pfizer and with Moderna. While they were going through these clinical trials, the factories were being built, the processes were being made. We began manufacturing millions and billions of doses of vaccine so that today we can have a deployment of 20 million doses of Pfizer vaccine across the United States. So none of the clinical safety stuff was rushed. What was propelled forward is the manufacturing part. Now, the federal government has taken the risk. So we have a bunch of vaccines in the pipeline that they've supported, and any one of those vaccines could fail in any one of those clinical trials. And if that happens, the feds would have put in millions or billions of dollars into the manufacturing of vaccines that will have to be destroyed and that will never see an arm to protect someone from COVID. And that's the risk that they were willing to take to be able to get these vaccines out. So phase 1 through 3 clinical trials happening at the same time as the manufacturing of these doses. Then there's FDA emergency use authorization, which for Pfizer came last week, for Moderna will hopefully come today. Then recommendations from the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, which came out for Pfizer last Sunday, will hopefully come out for Moderna on this Saturday and Sunday. And then even after we start giving those vaccines, there is a very, very robust surveillance process in place to make sure that we are tracking any kinds of really rare events that could happen in 1 in a million individuals. Everyone is watching to make sure that if there are signals like that, that we're picking that up. One of the applications that they've developed is something called vSafe. And so when you get a vaccine, you can opt into the vSafe program. And every day you get a text message that pings you and says, hey, how are you feeling today? To monitor for any kind of symptoms. And that is real-time data that's being collected on tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and eventually millions of people very, very quickly, so that if there's ever any kind of signal that 1 in a million people may have had this problem, they can be investigating that to make sure. I will tell you though, with 40,000 individuals in the Pfizer trial and no significant adverse events, even if we had a significant adverse event in the 40,001st person and it just missed the trial, the chance of having a significant adverse event from this vaccine is less than 0.002%. Your chance of dying from COVID in the state of Tennessee, if you get it, is 1.2%. So even with no other data on millions of people getting these vaccines have already proven to be extraordinarily safe. Next, please. So you may have seen this. These are the draft allocation phases. As Dr. Davis mentioned, we are in phase 1A1 as of today, giving vaccines to those who are at highest risk of acquiring infection in hospitals, and then those who are at highest risk of getting COVID-19 and having significant mortality from that. So inpatient hospital workers who have direct patient exposure, residents and staff of long-term care facilities, including DIDD congregate facilities, and first responders who have direct contact with the public. They're the first to get these vaccines. We anticipate there's about 450,000 of those individuals. As I mentioned, we got 56,000 doses of vaccine today. So we anticipate we will be in phase 1A1 through the rest of December and probably all of January before we're able to move past that to outpatient health care and then to individuals with high-risk comorbidities, including our older citizens, then into critical infrastructure, school teachers, those people living in congregate care or corrections, and then eventually to people who are at fairly low risk, young adults, children. If we eventually get a vaccine for children, the Pfizer can go down to 16, but that's as low as we get. And then eventually to anyone else who is interested in being vaccinated. And then across all of this is equity. We want to make sure that we are getting vaccine to underrepresented populations, to those people who may not have great access to healthcare, to those individuals who are at the highest risk. Next, please. So again, phase 1A1, just with a little more detail, hospitals and freestanding emergency department staff with direct patient exposure or exposure to potentially infectious materials. So this is not just licensed healthcare workers. This is also the people who mop the floors and deliver the meal trays and turn over the ORs between cases. All of those people are at high risk. People who go in and do home health care services, people who are working the COVID-19 mass testing sites, those who are providing student health services in K-12 and universities, staff and residents of long-term care facilities, and then first responders. And while these doses are so limited, we ask that they also sub-prioritize these groups to start with those individuals who are 65 and older or have any of the serious health risks that are listed here to make sure that those individuals are being protected first. Next, please. So we have 6 vaccines in progress right now. We have 1 that's in use. Hopefully on Monday, we'll be receiving the Moderna vaccine in the 95 counties in the health departments and into smaller hospitals over the next couple of weeks. And then there are 4 more vaccines behind those that we may begin to see in the first quarter of 2021. But those are still going through that vetting process of those phase 3 clinical trials to know if the vaccines are going to be effective, if they're going to be safe, and if we're going to be able to deploy those. So for right now, we're planning on 2. Next, please. The Pfizer BioNTech mRNA vaccine that is being deployed today is 95% effective in preventing COVID-19 14 days after the second dose. It is a 2-dose vaccine given 21 days apart. Again, it has been tested in 40,000 volunteers. I don't think anyone in the scientific community expected to see this vaccine be this effective. I mean, this is absolutely miraculous that this vaccine is this effective. It is very well tolerated. Yes, you could have some arm pain or swelling at the injection site. Yes, you could feel a little icky for a day or 2 with some low-grade fever or body aches. If any of you have had the Shingrix vaccine for shingles, I know I have. If you're over 50, if you haven't had it, you're late and you need to go get it. Very similar kind of side effect profile with that. It might take you, a day or 2 before you're feeling back to normal. That means the vaccine is working. That means that you're getting the kind of response with your immune system that you need to have to be able to fight off this virus. It requires ultra low storage, so these Arctic temperatures that you hear about on the news to minus 70 degrees Celsius, that is not a condition that we're used to using for vaccines. So we have to have these vaccines packed in dry ice, or they have to be in special freezers. These vaccines are going to hospitals because they have to be ordered in quantities of 975 doses. And so we have to know that we're going to be able to get those doses administered quickly. So they're going to hospitals that have very large staff where we know that we can get those doses put into arms. And so 56,550 doses arriving today. Next, please. The second vaccine that we're expecting, hopefully first of next week, is the Moderna vaccine, same technology as the Pfizer vaccine, about 95% effective in preventing COVID-19 7 days after the second dose, and 100% effective in preventing serious COVID-19. So not one person in this study who got this vaccine ended up hospitalized because of COVID-19, even if they did get infected. It was tested in more than 30,000 individuals. We are anticipating about 115,000 doses hopefully arriving beginning next week. This goes into a regular freezer, which is wonderful, or can be stored in a refrigerator for 30 days. There are 2 doses 28 days apart, so it's a different schedule than the Pfizer. It takes 1 more week. We are sending these vaccines to our health departments, to smaller hospitals that cannot support the Pfizer vaccine, and then we have to take 32,600 of our doses to set aside for the long-term care facility partnership with Walgreens and CVS. So these vaccines are used for first responders, for long-term care facility staff, and others that can be vaccinated in that phase 1A1 through health departments and strike teams and pods, points of dispensing that the health departments will put up. Next, please. So just quickly about mRNA vaccines and this technology, because I know this sounds scary and foreign, and it's really quite simple and pretty brilliant. So we start with the COVID-19 virus, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, if you want to click. And you've seen this cartoon of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So it has these little spike proteins all over it. And that spike protein is the Achilles heel of this virus. So they were able to sequence how to make that protein and package it into a recipe that we give the body. So we take the recipe for this protein, we give it to someone in the form of a shot. And then the body reads that protein, or reads that recipe, and starts making that protein that's on the surface of the virus. And go ahead and click again. And as a result of that, the body starts to make antibodies to that protein. And so now when you get infected with the actual virus, the body says, aha, I've seen this protein before. I know that I need to destroy it with my antibodies. And if you click one more time, and so it kills the virus before it has a chance to replicate and cause disease in someone. And so there's no virus that goes into this vaccine. It is a recipe to make a protein. We're all made of proteins. This is not scary. That recipe actually self-destructs, which it degrades in a very short period of time. So you make a few copies of this protein. Your body sees it as, this does not belong here. It makes an antibody to that. And then it remembers what that protein looks like. So when it sees it again, it wipes it out. It is brilliant technology. It is extraordinarily effective. And this will be a game changer for immunizations going forward. Next, please. So once again, if you want more information, please go to tn.gov/health, click on the yellow bar where you get all the coronavirus information, and then go to that blue tile for COVID-19 vaccine information, and you can find all of our resources there. And I think I have one more slide. Oh, yes. And in the meantime, while we're waiting, you still have to wash your hands. You still have to stay apart. You still need to stay home, especially if you're sick. You need to go get tested if you're sick. You need to absolutely wear a face mask. We have 3,000 people in America that died last night from COVID-19. You have to wear a face mask. You have to cover your colds and wash your hands and disinfect things. This is going to continue whether or not you receive a vaccine right now until we can get enough population vaccinated to be able to get these case counts and death rates down. So please do your part. Please make sure that you're doing that. Please be smart over the holidays and don't gather. Zoom with your friends and your family. It's just this one Christmas, and you know the Fiscus family is celebrating Christmas in July, we hope. So thank you for your time, and happy to get to questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fiscus. We are going to get to some questions that were pre-submitted. And then if folks want to enter your questions in the chat, we'll get to as many of those as possible as well. So Dr. Davis, these first few are for you. And these are the most commonly submitted questions that we got in advance. So even if this is reiterating what we started with, can you talk about when can a person with disabilities get the vaccine?
Okay, so yes. This is going to be relatively soon. That may make them more vulnerable, as Dr. Fiscus mentioned in her presentation. But very soon, hopefully next week, we will begin seeing some people with disabilities begin to get the vaccine. As Dr. Fiscus also pointed out, this is going to be across a period of time. It's not all going to happen at one time. And so we're only getting a very limited delivery of Moderna vaccine next week and the weeks following, but it will ramp up over time. And so it will be a stepwise process. DIDD is providing information to the Departments of Health across the state to be able to respond to the needs that exist within each county. We also have the capacity to be able to collaborate with pharmacies like process fairly quickly. So the first people I anticipate to get the vaccine will probably be next week sometime, assuming that the deliveries come in on time. So that's probably about as much as I can say about when, but hopefully very soon.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. And if someone's not sure when they might get it, should they talk to their doctor or the local health department?
Local health department. What we have set up is a registration system for people who are in phase 1A, 1A1. And so this registration system through DIDD is where people will give their information, and then we put them into a hopper essentially and distribute that information out to the local health departments so that they know who to respond to.
Thank you. And where would a person with a disability get the vaccine?
Yeah, so that last statement I made is a good segue. I mean, so I think the bulk of people probably will get them at their local health department. Although, as I said, you can work with your local pharmacy as well to get vaccinated. So they're going to have, as Dr. Fiscus pointed out, they're going to have a number of vaccines there where they can assist in this process. And then the other possibility is that at some health departments where there are a lot of people who are in phase 1A1, so if there's an agency that has a number of people who have agreed to take the vaccine and that need vaccination along with their staff, then they may do what they call strike teams and have a team go out to that agency or facility and do the vaccines on site. So those are a couple of the ideas about where this might happen.
Great. And what can we expect from the process?
Yeah, well, one thing I have pointed out about this, I'm forecasting lots of snafus, but I think we do have a pretty organized process for doing this. What I really want to encourage everybody who has received notification that they can register through our system, that they go ahead and register as soon as they can. One of the things that is impeding things a little bit for our population, different from maybe some other populations, is the fact that many people have conservators. And so that we have to coordinate the consent form in advance of the time that the person is going to go and get the vaccination. And that consent form is actually, we took it down from the DID website because we realized that you have to have what's called the emergency use authorization before that form can be completed. And the emergency use authorization is a document that's put out by the Food and Drug Administration about their authorization of the Moderna vaccine. Technically, that has not been approved yet, and there's might remain a small possibility that it wouldn't be approved, but it probably will. And when it is, there will be this emergency use authorization that will outline things like how many people were included in the study to verify the safety of the vaccine, the risks and benefits of the vaccine, information that people need to be able to make a decision. I was reflecting a little earlier that we have been collecting these registrations so far. We found, because both persons supported through congregate care settings in our system have been identified in 1A1 along with the staff that work with them. We've had so far about 2,000, maybe somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 people register. Right now, we're running at a 76% rate of people who say they will take the vaccine. We also have about half, maybe a little bit less than half, 46.5% of staff who have said they will take it. There are a number of people who are not taking it at this point. Of course, I qualify those data to say this is very early in the process. We still have a lot more people to have register. And I assume a lot of the people that have not registered so far are waiting for more information to do that. I mean, it has been relatively recent that we've been able to speak a lot about the studies that were used to verify safety of the vaccinations, but also, just information about messenger RNA that Dr. Fiscus was talking about and other things. So I understand why people are a little bit hesitant and waiting for information. To get educated as quickly as they can, though, so that we can get as many people registered early as possible. You see, when you look at the data, that the death rates right now are increasing. And when I talk about the death rates, it's not just death that we're talking about. It's severe consequences, health consequences that people have for the rest of their life because they had COVID-19. So I'm not even talking about that right now as far as the data that I'm presenting. but that's a whole other group of people that had COVID-19 that are now going to deal with kidney problems and heart problems and other types of respiratory problems that they wouldn't have had to deal with otherwise, but because they had COVID-19, they did. And so so that is a little bit of what you can expect from the process. At some point after you've registered, you'll be notified that you can come and get your vaccine at a particular location, or that somebody will be coming to your location, or that if you're working with a pharmacy, that'll be worked out between you and the pharmacy. But this is essentially what you can expect from the process. Lauren.
Thank you, Dr. We have one question for you, and then we'll have just a few for Dr. Fiscus. Sorry about the feedback. Is it safe for people with disabilities to take this vaccine, even though this population is not included in the trials?
Yes, and I know we're all concerned about every study that ever comes out because not enough people with disabilities are included in the studies. We always are wondering, well, what is the impact for a person with disabilities? And that's really relevant in a lot of studies. I think the more relevant thing you might want to ask here would be people with chronic health conditions. That's because a lot of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities have co-occurring chronic health conditions like diabetes, like COPD perhaps, or heart conditions, other things of this nature that or kidney disease that may make them very vulnerable to COVID-19. So if they get COVID-19, it's really going to have a negative impact on them. But so I probably, instead of using, there's no reason in my mind that anybody with IDD should think that this would have a differential effect on them than it has on anybody else because of their IDD. Now, if they have these other conditions, maybe you would think that. But yet, there were 8,000 people with chronic health conditions like the ones I just described who were included in this Moderna trial, the phase 3 trial. And none of those folks so far have experienced any serious side effects from taking the vaccine. This should be a real comfort, I think, to people. So even though IDD is not specifically represented, they didn't recruit a number of people with IDD to be in the studies. A lot of people who have similar types of chronic conditions were included, and it's really, really important for this group to think about getting that vaccine and hopefully doing it earlier rather than later. Lauren?
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Okay, Dr. Davis. Here are the most commonly asked questions, if you can take these on the slide.
Sure thing. So with respect to impaired immune systems, so we know that people who have impaired immune systems are at very high risk of having severe COVID-19 disease. And so as with most vaccines, it's very important that people who have an impaired immune system get this vaccine to help to prevent that. The caveat here is that because of that immune system maybe not being quite normal, it's possible you might not have quite as much protection from the vaccine as someone who has a normal immune system. Still, something is better than nothing, and we'll know more over time about how protective these vaccines are in people who are immune compromised, but there is no reason to not get the vaccine because you have a compromised immune system. As far as allergies go, so there have been a couple of cases of anaphylaxis or severe allergic reaction when the Pfizer vaccine was used in the UK last week. They got their vaccine a week ahead of us. These were people who had severe allergic reactions in the past to other vaccines or injected or infused medications. So there was some risk factor there already. Remember, this was 2 individuals out of what has probably now been hundreds of thousands of individuals who have received that vaccine. So again, it's most likely a very rare complication. I did hear a report that we had a similar reaction to someone in Alaska who got the Pfizer vaccine this past week. So the recommendation is that if you have a history of having a serious allergic reaction like anaphylaxis where you need epinephrine to an injected or infused medication in the past, including vaccines, that you should make sure that you get this vaccine in a doctor's office or in a hospital where they can respond to anaphylaxis, and you should be held there for 30 minutes after you get your vaccine to make sure that you don't have some kind of serious allergic reaction. These are reversible with epinephrine. You just have to make sure you're in the right place when you get the vaccine so that you're in a place that's prepared for that. As for any other allergies, food allergies, pet allergies, environmental allergies, there currently is no concern about that. If you have had anaphylaxis in the past from any of those, then you're asked to also be observed for 30 minutes after your shot, but there's no reason not to get it because of allergies. And then if you take medications, we don't know of any kind of interaction between this vaccine and medications. There's not any reason really to expect that to be a problem. So there are no cautions around taking any particular medications and getting the vaccine. So all of these people can get a vaccine. Some of them might have to wait 30 minutes in a doctor's office before they go home.
Thank you. And what are the potential side effects that people can expect?
So the most common side effects that we see with the mRNA vaccines are the things that we see with every other vaccine, which is tenderness or pain at the injection site. It's injected in your deltoid in your arm. And so you could have some tenderness or redness or swelling there. You could have some low-grade fever or even some, in rare cases, higher fevers for a day or two. You could have some muscle aches or body aches or headache for a day or two. The most common reported more serious adverse reactions are tiredness and headache, and those sometimes lasted for 2 or 3 days. It is possible to get higher fevers. Maybe 3% or so of people with Pfizer vaccine will get higher fevers, so that's not a lot. More likely to be with the second dose than with the first. Most people are probably going to breeze through the first dose pretty well. You can take Tylenol or ibuprofen after you get the vaccine if you start to feel bad. You shouldn't take it just in case, because those medications alter the way we respond. They're anti-inflammatory. Ibuprofen is an anti-inflammatory medication. So if you take it anticipating that you might feel bad, you could impact the way the vaccine works for you. So get the vaccine. If you feel icky, take some Tylenol. If you still feel icky, take some ibuprofen, unless your doctor has told you not to, and give it a couple of days and you should feel better.
Thank you. Our last question before we take some from the chat: do I need to take the vaccine if I've already had the virus?
You should. What we know about immunity from infection is that it's not very long lasting, maybe 90 days. We're not quite sure about that. Those people who have really severe COVID-19 hospitalized in the ICU, they may have immunity that lasts a little bit longer. People who are asymptomatic or have very mild cases may not have much immunity at all. So you should get vaccinated. Because we think that you might be given some protection for about 90 days after your infection, if you wanted to step aside and let someone else who might be at higher risk go before you to get a vaccine, you may choose to do that if you're within 90 days of your infection being diagnosed, but you don't have to, and that is entirely up to you. You should get vaccinated when you're nearing that 90-day mark, because the chance that you are going to be protected beyond that period is probably pretty slim.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to do about 5 to 7 minutes of chat questions, and then we will wrap it up. So tell us about how long it takes to have the vaccine take effect in your body.
Yeah, so there's been some really good data on this that's come out recently, specifically on the Moderna vaccine, or I'm sorry, on the Pfizer vaccine, which showed that it was about 52% effective about a week after dose 1, 95% effective within 2 weeks of dose 2. It's that second dose that we think is going to be the one that gives you the long-lasting protection. So it's super important that you get both doses, but there may be some protection with that first dose. I've not seen similar data yet with the Moderna vaccine. It's the same technology. It would make sense that we would have a similar partial protection after dose 1, but you really need that second dose to get up to that 95% protection. And what that means is that if you had 100 people in a room and you threw virus into it and they had been vaccinated, 95 out of those 100 people would not get sick from COVID-19. So it's very, very effective vaccine. You probably need about a week past your second dose to feel like you've got pretty significant immunity.
Great. And just a follow-up here, how long is immunity effective after the vaccination? And does someone need to quarantine if they're feeling symptoms during that post-vaccine time?
Yeah, so those are really good questions. So time is our enemy here, and we only know how long it lasts because we know how long the studies have been in place. So these first vaccines were given in February and March of this year, so we know we've got about 9 months so far. They're not reporting that they're seeing a waning of immunity, so hopefully it's going to last longer than that. Will we maybe need to have a yearly vaccine? It's possible. I think it's unlikely, given the amazing efficacy of these vaccines, that it will have to be a yearly vaccine. Will it have to be every other? Will we have to have a booster at some point? All of that remains to be seen. Know that the people who are in the trials are way ahead of you on these vaccines. So if you got your vaccine today, we would have at least 9 months notice that the immunity was starting to go away and know what to do about that. So you've got all of those brave volunteers who went ahead of you who are going to be the canary in the coal mine for any kind of waning of immunity. As far as whether or not you need to quarantine if you get symptoms, right now the answer is yes. If you have symptoms of COVID-19, and you would need to isolate just as you would, and we would recommend that you get tested even if you've been vaccinated. We will have more information about that as time goes on, and likely that will lift. Likewise, if you've been exposed, then you should quarantine even if you've been immunized for right now until we get more data on that. As far as people who get the vaccine and then maybe feel bad for a day or two, do they need to worry about having COVID-19 and getting tested? The guidance on that is if they're the symptoms that we don't typically see with COVID-19, so it's the soreness at the injection site, or it's maybe a little bit of body aches, then you probably don't have to do that. If you have fever, you probably do need to go ahead and self-isolate and get a test before we're comfortable saying that it's not COVID-19 that's causing your symptoms. But again, as we start to get hundreds of thousands and millions of doses of this, this information will change very, very rapidly as that data comes in.
That's a good point. Okay, just a few DIDD specific questions for you, Dr. Davis, before we wrap up. Do you have to be receiving services from DIDD to be in the 1A1 group?
So this is applying to people in the DIDD waiver, in also people who are in the ECF choices waiver, and people in ICF programs, intermediate care facilities. There are also some people in the choices program who understand are in blended homes with some of the folks in the ECF choices program or in the Medicaid waiver program, and those folks are also included. So those are the folks at this point who are identified in phase 1A1. And so we're working with all of those groups to identify who they are and to get that information to local health departments so they can begin the vaccination process. Lauren?
Great. And if someone is in that 1A1 group, do they need a doctor's order to receive the vaccine like they do for other medications and vaccines?
No, they don't need a doctor's order. They do have to have a consent. And I do want to also say that if you have questions about the vaccine or whether you should take it, and, particularly if you have any of those conditions that Dr. Fiscus was talking about or asked about, food allergies, et cetera, maybe you want to consult with your doctor to make sure that it's safe for you. But Ultimately, you don't have to have a doctor's order, no, Lauren.
Okay. And should people register staff or just persons supported with intellectual and developmental disabilities?
No, you definitely should be reporting, registering staff. And I really, we have gotten them included in phase 1A1 because it's very important for us to be able to maintain our workforce through this. I mean, and I know many agencies out there have had terrible problems maintaining their workforce because of people who've been out because of COVID-19 and, been on these extended leaves and so forth. Now, of course, as Dr. Fiscus pointed out, we're going to still have to do some of the same things we've been doing with respect to symptoms and with respect to exposures, but we want to get our workforce in shape here. And so I really want to encourage people to take advantage of this opportunity to get it in phase 1A1. I do understand people's hesitation. I don't want to invalidate that. I just would encourage everybody to find out the information about it, look at the process that's been followed to establish the safety of this vaccine, and try. I don't want to tell people that they must do it, but I do want to say I think you really should. And so so that is I think once you see the information, you will want to do that. So Lauren, I think that about wraps that.
That does. Thank you both. So I'm going to go through our closing slides, which is reiterating that talk with your doctor and others you trust about your unique situation, taking all of this information into account before you make your decision. And stay up to date because, as Dr. Fiscus and Dr. Davis both emphasized, everything's changing as we learn more about this new vaccine. So the Department of Health's COVID website the direct link is here and it's updated regularly. That's your best source of information. A recording of this event will be available. There is a form stack, very short survey. We'd love to hear from you about how you thought this presentation went and what you'd like to know more about. Thank you to our interpreters today, and thank all of you for attending today. Here's our way to stay connected with us at the council. Dr. Davis or Dr. Fiscus, do you want to say any closing remarks?
I'll just encourage everyone to remember that we are also headed into flu season, and while those masks and hand washing and distancing are helping to mitigate that, it is also critically important that you go get a flu vaccine. No, it won't give you the flu. Please go get one. We do not need twindemics of flu and COVID-19 circulating right now. So please go and get a flu vaccine. And yes, if you have questions, please go to our website. We do have an FAQ that is updated every Wednesday on on the public facing website, where you can go and read questions and see myths debunked, and let us know if you have other questions. There's also a public information line that you can call that's available till 10 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday, and I think until 4 on the weekends. If you have general questions, you're welcome to call that as well.
Thank you. Dr. Davis?
Yeah, Lauren, I just want to say one thing about this because you might have gathered I'm a little bit of a student of history, and I looked, one of the things that I have learned is that our country was built on vaccines. I don't know if a lot of people know that because, back during the Revolutionary War, when the soldiers were held down at Valley Forge over a winter there during the Revolutionary War, there was an outbreak of smallpox. And in that, they didn't know much about how to deal with this, but they kind of figured out that they could get some immunity. And this was a live virus vaccine. It's different from the ones that we're talking about now with messenger RNA. There's no live virus in those, but most vaccines have been with a live virus that you use to vaccinate someone. But instead of using needles, they just cut 3 small cuts on the person's arm, and they would take some of the live virus from the guys who had gotten COVID or gotten smallpox, and they would smear it into those wounds, and they vaccinated those soldiers, and because of that, they were able to survive the winter and go on to win the Revolutionary War. And I just say, man, that is a great historical lesson, U.S. history lesson about vaccines, that we've been doing this for a long time, and it really is pretty safe to do. In fact, it's safer than the alternative, which is getting COVID-19 and having to suffer through that and maybe having permanent health consequences or dying from it. So I just want to say, I really encourage people to find out all the information. And if they can feel comfortable with it, please go forward and get the vaccine.
Thank you. We cannot thank you both enough. And I know you're so busy. I know there's a press conference going on right now, Dr. Fiscus. And so we will wrap up here and share the recording afterward. I appreciate everyone's time.